Hi, everyone. We are doing a special set of episodes this week. We are partnering with Saks Off Fifth as well as our friends over at Feeling Asian to celebrate AANHPI month.
Saks Off Fifth is a great store. It's a great website. They've got amazing designer brands at value, sometimes up to 70% off. I've got a couple of things from there. I've got some jeans. I've got some nice sweatshirts. They also got kids stuff, so I'm doing shopping for my son.
And I also have built out my full wardrobe for the summer.
That's right. That's it's a great place. And this is the third year in a row that Saks Off Fifth is also celebrating Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Month with the Asian Mental Health Collective. It's an organization that destigmatizes mental health within the Asian community.
Saks Off Fifth and Asian Mental Health Collective created the Lotus Therapy Fund 3 years ago, which provides mental health access to those who do not have financial resources or if they don't have insurance that covers therapy.
That's right. The Lotus Therapy Fund has covered over 1,400 therapy sessions to date and is one of Asian Mental Health Collective's largest and most in-demand programs.
Yes, and we love mental health support.
Great. Mm-hmm.
To learn more about the Asian Mental Health Collective or to make a donation to support them, please visit www.asianmhc.org. Thanks.
Thanks. Hey gang, just wanted to remind you all that we've got a live show coming up. It's called Real Asian Ships. It's the only Asian American dating show ever. Don't look that up, but I think it is. We've got bachelors and bachelorettes. They're all playing for love, and the crowd gets to join in too. It's a lot of fun. It's happening June 1st, 7 p.m. at Caveat in the Lower East Side. There's also streaming tickets, so you can watch live streaming. Tickets available at caveat.nyc or in the link in the episode description. Come check it out. I'll be there. Jenny will be there. We've got some special guests coming by. And who knows, maybe you'll make a connection. Again, June 1st, 7 p.m. at Caveat. See you there. Welcome to another episode of the Asian Not Asian podcast, the podcast with all your favorite Asian friends. I'm Mike Nguyen.
I'm Jenny Arimoto.
We're sharing a microphone because this podcast is too packed. Let's just say that. It's a really special podcast. We're really excited to have our guests and to be doing this as a special one for Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Month. And I just want to bring on our guests right away because we've got a lot to cover. This is a continuation from the other episode. And so if you haven't checked it out already, check out the episode the week before and then come back to this one because it'll be all good. But this will be a great episode. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So our guests, we had them on the last episode. They're back. They're horny. Okay. Yeah. I just want to set the tone right away.
Wow.
Yeah. I want to set the tone right away.
That's a lot of energy.
It's a lot of energy. I'm trying to work through all the food.
Is that the tone you want to set? This is a pretty serious episode, Mike.
Yeah, I do want to set it like that.
Yeah, maybe some comedy up top.
Yeah, so comedy up top, then nothing funny the rest of the time.
Okay.
No, our guests are comedians, writers. We got Brian Park and Youngmi Mayer, everyone.
Woo!
Yay.
Hi.
Hello.
You've been here the
and
whole
we're
time.
horny.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
That's the end of the joke portion of this episode. That's it. It's all serious now.
Cool, yeah. And this episode's... Oh, yep. There I am. Mike and I are sharing a microphone, and it's not going as smoothly as I thought it would in my head. Because I realize our faces will be really close together.
What if you hold it like this and go like this?
He told me not to hold it.
Okay.
Oh,
Sorry.
I see.
Yeah.
Oh,
Our
sorry.
producer, aka Mike, told me not to hold it.
Okay. Sorry.
But anyways, this episode is very cool. We have an additional guest on top of these two fantastic guests. And then I wrote a little intro blurb. So welcome to your ears. Licensed therapist with her own private practice in New York City who works predominantly with AAPI individuals, which I guess is AANHPI individuals. In addition to her clinical work, she's also a contributor as a mental health expert to the Ask a Therapist series at I Don't Mind. Welcome to your ears, Kathryn Lee. Yay!
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming. Sorry for the weird energy. It's really nice. We have a whole bunch of questions that we asked our listeners, and we're just gonna come on and bring them on. And this isn't therapy session. This is just us kind of like working through some questions and getting everyone's perspective. Does that seem cool?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So it's not you. This isn't therapy. Kathryn, you're not on the clock. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
See the chaotic
This is a
advice.
safe space.
Yeah. It's a safe space, but we will cancel you.
Wonderful. So we're all gonna give our hot takes, and then Kathryn is gonna have to pick up the pieces and correct us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Should we do that?
Cool. Yeah. So we posted to our Instagram, and I tried to organize them in terms of theme. And so we'll see how I did. But maybe we could start with the topic of family.
Wow. Wait, can I ask before you start? Are these questions? What did you ask from your listeners? Like to just ask questions as a AANHPI person to a therapist?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the prompt was like, if you have any topics or questions for an Asian therapist,
right?
Please send them our way. We actually got a lot of requests and questions. I think people are hungry for this type of talk.
So family.
Yeah. So family was a big topic. That was actually probably the number one topic. Yeah, which is a really big surprise as an Asian person. But yeah, there were obviously a lot of questions specifically about relationships to parents and difficult relationships to parents, as well as trauma that may have come from those relationships. So let's just begin with the topic of like how to balance being independent and like your own person, but also be a good child to your parents, especially if that is like a strained relationship.
Wait, should we give our opinions and then you will like give your professional opinion? Well, how should we do this?
I mean,
let's hear maybe Kathryn first.
Yeah, and then we can talk about ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I hear this question, I have a few other questions.
Sure.
You hear this question a lot. Is this like the number one question?
I hear a lot of questions like this. And the thing is that there's going to be no cookie cutter answer, obviously, too. And that's very frustrating for a lot of my own clients. But when I hear, again, questions like this, my first curiosity is like, well, what does it even mean to be a good child? Like, what does that look like? And what did that look like?
Yeah.
And does your definition of a good child, does that align with your parents' definition of a good child?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so good child is when your
Brian has the answer.
Good child is when your parent can brag about your accomplishments at family parties or gatherings with friends, and no one else can top that. You are the apex child.
Okay.
And then you send monthly payments to your parents. That's good child.
The monthly payments. Okay, your parents are basically a Netflix subscription that you got to be dumping like whatever $200 whatever per month. I used to do that, and I felt like such a good son. I felt like such a good son doing that, dude.
Wow.
It was that, and like buying them like special rice cakes for like Lunar New Year. I was like, this is peak good
Moon
son.
cakes.
But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to undermine your. It's subjective.
Yeah.
That is a good question.
Oh yeah, maybe we should just say what we think being a good child is. Because for me, I would say, because I also had this battle. My parents are not. I don't have a traumatic relationship to my parents, but I did have a really difficult time understanding what my role is versus what my parents want my role to be. So I would say that my definition of good child is being responsible, making responsible decisions that align with their version of like success or like independence, so that similarly they can go talk about me to their friends or whatever, but also so they don't have to worry about me, and also that like ultimately you do the favor of taking care of them as you get older and they get older as well. So it's like picking a path that's safe, that will because ultimately we will be responsible for them.
Yeah. Well, I think, Kathryn, are you saying that like as a therapist, when you're trying to help somebody with this issue, what you're trying to help them realize is that they have a different idea of what that is versus their parent?
Yeah, that it might be different.
Yeah. And so, then so what is like, I guess like the resolution of that? Because I think so much of us, like specifically, like even, I know we were joking right now, but like so much of us like don't even have a concept of what that means, because it's like we just are doing what our parents want. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, that's so much of the therapy process, I feel like.
Right.
Is when you're in that healing process, you're learning a lot about yourself. Right? All the traumas, all these wounds, but also you begin to learn more intimately about yourself. Like, what do I actually care about?
Yeah.
What are the beliefs and values that I that are mine and not my parents, not society's, no one else's.
Yeah, you know, that's like really, it reminds me of something that I did in therapy where they because I have a lot of like self-hatred issues. I'm so special, no one else knows what that feels like, right? And then I think like my therapist was like, well, like what are the things that you value in yourself? Because I think a lot of my self-hatred came from stuff that my parents were saying about me as a kid that I could not fulfill. And then she was like asking me to do this like exercise where I was like pointing out what in me do I like.
Right.
And then it did really help me because I was like, oh, I'm like a kind and loving friend and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it doesn't matter that my parents care about whatever, like me being skinny or whatever. They, you know?
Exactly.
And that was really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Because my curiosity then is, what if you're leading a healthy life, you're happy, you feel like, you know, oh, I'm so attuned to my needs and my well-being, but this isn't my parents' definition of what a good child is.
Right.
Am I okay letting that go?
Yeah.
And can I like reconcile this tension of like their definition of a good child and my definition of a good child? Because ideally, you being healthy, right, and you taking care of yourself, that allows you to take care of your parents and all those around you, actually, right? So ideally, that's actually how you're being a quote unquote good child, right?
So then how do you manage that? So let's say that you understand that the definitions are different. You're happy yourself, but your parents are still maybe not, you're not reaching your parents' standard, whatever that standard is. Then how do you manage out so you're not so impacted by your parents?
Boundaries.
Ooh, yikes. What?
I didn't even know that was on the table.
What?
I didn't know. That's like saying like, oh, it's not A through A, B, C, D, or E. It's boundaries. And I'm
Boundaries.
like, wow. What?
It's not losing 10 pounds
It's
like
not?
my mom says.
It's not forcing yourself to go to dental school. That's not it.
Boundaries.
How do you implement boundaries then if you have like toxic parents? Or like is there a way to actively set boundaries if your parents don't understand the concept of boundaries?
It's tough. I want to say that up front, like it's probably going to be in trial and error on your end, right? But if you're not crystal clear on what your boundaries are, like what you're okay with, right, then it's all going to fall apart. So that's step number one, is you got to be super clear. What am I okay with? Am I not okay with them talking about like my weight, right? Am I not okay with them talking about my relationship? What is it exactly that I'm like, this is something I don't want them to touch.
Got it.
Right.
Right. And then when you go in, I don't know, you're seeing your parents, you're having a conversation. There are some like tools and things that you can implement, work on with your therapist, right? To figure out, okay, what's going to work for you specifically.
Yeah.
And what I like to do with my clients is, especially over the holidays, this comes up a lot.
Yeah.
And what I invite them to do and what we do together is we kind of explore like, what are safe topics? And maybe the only thing that's a safe topic is like, maybe it's food, maybe it's a TV show, maybe it's work. Like find that safe topic and that's what you run to.
You steer it in that direction.
You steer the conversation that way. Like that's one of the things that I do with my clients a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And then the second thing, I'm always like, great coping skill, go to the bathroom, no one's going to question it.
Yeah.
Excuse yourself, you need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
No wonder we're so into food, everybody. We're just because that's like the safe spot. That's the space. You know, that's the, you know, you can talk about like, oh, your cream pancakes are so yummy, yum 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 yum, and like not talk about other stuff.
I mean, like 80% of the conversation when I'm at home is about food. I don't know about you guys, but like that is, I think, deemed the safest space for us.
Yeah.
Right.
Or like if you're at the restaurant. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kathryn.
No, I was going to say for our parents too, or even our grandparents. You know, I think for so many of us, we struggle with the fact that, our parents they're not very expressive. You know, we don't talk about our feelings. Their safe topic is also food in some ways.
Yeah.
Wait, Kath, I don't know if you have a question along these lines, but I remember when we were doing like the podcast, Brian and I, we got like this, there was like this whole discussion we had with our like Asian listeners about how, you know, in a lot of therapy, I know it's kind of like, maybe you're going to talk about this already, but like there's this idea in like Western cultures of cutting your parents off and like that just doesn't exist as much in Asian communities. So do you think these are like, do you think you have like a lot of experience with this kind of stuff because you are working with clients that don't have the option of like the cut off parents thing?
Yeah, so I predominantly work with Asian American individuals, and that's the tension that they all sit in.
Right.
I can't just cut off my parents, can't just stop talking to them.
Right.
So you go to the bathroom instead.
I'm like, if you really need to escape a situation, there's no way out, right? Just go to the bathroom, excuse yourself, run to a safe topic. But, you know, I know, again, working with my clients, I mean, I'm Asian American too, so I totally get it that like your parents will just keep going and going and nagging and nagging. They're not getting the point.
Yeah.
I'm like, go to the bathroom, go wash your hands.
I love this.
Try to reground yourself, take a breather, maybe text a friend, like have someone like on ready, like on call to kind of like support you, who knows that you're going into this situation. I mean, hopefully you have like a cousin or a brother or a sister that can kind of like hold you and like support you. You guys can go in it together. But if not, like, you know, I understand that for some of my clients, they just feel so isolated from their family. There is no safe person. They feel like they're going into a war zone.
Yeah.
And sometimes the best coping skill is really just going to the bathroom.
Or you can always go into the bedroom and be like, I have to study. And they're like, oh, please.
Oh my gosh.
No one bother Mike. He's studying.
Yeah.
I don't know what
We'll
he's
bring up
studying.
some
He's
cut
in his
fruit.
40s.
Yeah. Oh, he's going to dental school finally.
He's studying. Everyone, shush. Don't talk to him.
Shut up. Everybody.
Lock the door.
Okay.
Don't let anyone
Think
talk
about
to you.
incisors. Think about incisors.
That's what my cousins do. They're like, oh, I have to study. I'm like, you're 47. What do you and everyone's like,
Exactly.
shh, don't bother him.
That's such a good point, though, because looking through because there were a lot of people writing in about parental questions, but none of them were about cutting off a toxic parent. It was how to manage a toxic parent. And how do you, one of the questions was, how do I love a toxic parent while also understanding that they're toxic and you need to like create boundaries? And I think that's so fascinating that like we're all trying to work. It's like, it's Asian. We are going to sustain a relationship if we can't, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Wait,
It's
what would
really
your answer
hard.
be to how do you love a toxic parent
How do you love a parent?
or a toxic parent?
I mean, again, it's boundaries. And for me as a therapist, when I see someone who is so desperate to love a parent that is toxic, right, I'm like, man, boundaries to me is you really holding on to that relationship. If you really didn't care, you would just jump ship,
Yeah.
right? So even that attempt, I'm like, man, that's you trying to love them right now.
Yeah.
You coming to therapy, that's you trying to love them.
Right.
Damn.
Yeah. That gave me goosebumps.
Nice.
This is the opposite of how this podcast usually goes. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like learning shit. This
Mike's
is
like,
crazy.
we're horny.
We're horny. I started off right there, and then.
Why do you think Mike said that? What's your therapist take on why did he start with that weird joke? Read him to filth.
I got a similar question, and I think this relates to being toxic. My mom has become, I feel, less toxic over time, and I think a lot of that has to do with, you know, she's got a bunch of grandkids now, but then also she's got a good community. She's like always texting people. She texts people more than me. She's in like tons of group texts. She's always on TikTok, and I'm like, what are you doing? She's like a
That's so
teenager,
funny.
and so she's always like, I'm talking to my friend. Get out of my room, and I'm like, oh damn. But I think a lot of older parents, they're alone. They either have, sometimes they have each other, sometimes they don't even have that, you know, and I think there's a large Vietnamese community, but some people are not part of that, or they're physically away from that. So like, what about sort of looking, you know, thinking about your parents and their well-being? Like, how do you foster that kind of like, you know, community when a lot of them are isolated or might be isolated?
Yeah. So fostering a sense of community for them.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we can do our best to support our parents as much as possible and encourage them to, I don't know, talk to their friends, go to this event, I don't know, talk to this auntie, talk to that auntie, etc. But at the same time, like, we also need to understand that our parents are in their own process. and that they're gonna make their own decisions.
Yeah.
We don't know why they're not seeking community. Maybe there's like drama that we don't know about, right? Maybe there's
Yeah.
trauma. Maybe there's like relationship stuff that we just don't know. Maybe there's like a lot of guilt. We have no idea.
Right.
Right. And so as much, I wonder so often, like when I sit with my clients, like how often are we actually doing what our parents did to us? Like our parents were like, with the best of intentions, you know, go date this kind of a person, be a doctor and study really hard, like do this, do that. And then how we kind of do the same thing as adults, where we're like, go to therapy. Like, why aren't you talking to me? Like, it's like you're doing the same thing that kind of like your parents did. So how can we meet our parents where they're at, and just acknowledge kind of what they're going through?
Right.
Yeah, Mike is
Mike is like having a moment. He's shook.
I keep looking at him and he's freaking out.
I'm canceling the podcast, and now this is a therapy session. Wow. I mean, you know, it's just like, this is what you there's so much time. There's so many times where you don't realize you're doing the thing that, you know, like I sometimes will see other people like going through relationships. I'm like, oh my gosh, can't you see that you got that from your mom or you got that from your dad? And like now I'm thinking about what I'm doing because I learned all those things from them, and I'm just like mirroring it back to that person. And I think it's nice too, because we often just shit on our parents on this podcast. We just like, whatever, they suck. But to like actually like really try to have empathy, even to somebody who is, you know, obviously can be toxic to you, it's like, that's such a different mindset, you know, than I think a lot of people have.
That's how we actually break cycles, right? Because everyone's talking about breaking cycles, and like some of my clients, they'll be like, well, they're talking to me about like something that happened, and they're like, oh, like my mom said this and it was so annoying, and then I said this back, and I was like, so you guys are doing the same thing. Right? Like, you are your mother's daughter. Like, I'm not there, but I'm seeing it. I see it so clearly. Right? And I mean, part of that work is rewiring all of that.
Wait, so I want to piggyback off of this topic. Like, what if you're coming at it from like a positive spin, and how do you reconcile that? Because this is something that I have trouble with, where you know, my parents, they came to this country and they worked really hard and they succeeded, and so then I think like I feel inadequate, or at times like a failure, because I am fluent in English. I did study at good schools here, and I haven't amounted to like what their accomplishments were. Like, how do you reconcile that then? Because that's coming at it from like, I don't think they're toxic. Like, this is like an admirable quality of them, but then why do I constantly like berate myself in comparison?
Okay, like you're holding yourself to a really high standard.
Right.
Okay.
Because it's like an opposite. It's like an inverse, you know? Because here we're like, my parents are toxic, but on the other side of the coin, it's like, my parents are great. Why am I kind of like, why am I not living up to that? If I'm like, if I'm like their son, you know?
Well, first, I would encourage you, you know, to be very kind towards yourself.
Absolutely not.
No, that can't be the answer.
You know,
No. It's got to be make more content, right? That's the key.
Make more money.
Make more money. I think that's it. Maybe
Yes,
get a haircut. Yeah. Book some shows. How about that?
I just wanted to bring this up because maybe there's listeners who might feel this way.
Yeah, I feel that way too. I feel like I'm very similar to that as well. Like, my parents did succeed. And so I'm holding myself accountable to their standards of success.
You know, I think for like Brian, I don't know that much about your past, Jenny, but like for Brian, because I know so much about it, I think it's like a combo, because I think there's part of, you know, you that feels like, oh, my parents are toxic and mean, and they're doing all this stuff that's really hurtful to me, and I really don't like that, and I want to like draw these boundaries. But and the other side is, but there's just so much more successful than I am, and they really made their way, so there must be something that they're doing that's correct, you know, quote unquote, and then I'm quote unquote wrong, you know, and so it's like two things almost, you know.
I mean, really when I'm like, well, they made their choice, right? They're successful, but like, are they happy?
At what cost?
You know, are they healthy? Like, is that true success?
Yeah.
You know, and how do you define that?
Right.
Right. I empathize with this because like my mom, she went to Juilliard,
Yeah.
Oh no.
right? So
Oh no.
Heard of it?
yeah, she went to Juilliard, like super competitive,
Yeah.
like so hard to get into.
Right.
And so I empathize a lot with this kind of sentiment, right? And I think what's really important is like, you know, the quote, like, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's so cheesy, but it's true. But you really need to ground yourself in like who you are and just trusting the process, as cheesy as it sounds.
Yeah.
And like knowing that, okay, I'm on my own path and, you know, me just being is enough.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need to prove myself.
Yeah.
And I think the first thing that you said, you know, like where like you find the definition of what is a good kid for yourself. Maybe that's like something that like Brian could, like, what is the definition of success like for yourself, right? You know,
Right,
like not
right.
comparing with your parents.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
I mean, that's why I think you and I, we like at least maybe once a quarter, Brian and I like text each other, go like, dude, it's time to go to med school, dude. Let's do it. We could do it, right? It always feels like, and I constantly have fantasies about, well, man, I wish I was just like a little bit smarter in econ or something, and I could have become a lawyer, and that would have been, you know, because then it would have like, I would have fulfilled the prophecy,
Right.
you know?
But now we have the tools. Rather than actually go, we have to excuse ourselves and say we need to study for the med school exam or the law school
There you
exam.
go.
Aha! It's a really hard test, mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, this is powerful. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think part of this, this is related a lot to my experience. So I think I try to manage everyone because I think I know what's best. So then I will go and then try. Like part of what I'm working on in therapy is just letting go that I can't change the decisions that my family members make, even though I think it should be different.
Yeah. Yeah.
And part of that is me being the oldest girl of three. And we had a lot of questions about like girls versus boys in Asian families.
Yeah.
Like the different responsibilities, different expectations. One was specifically about like being an oldest daughter, which I feel.
Yeah.
I try to like, I'm like second mom in my head. I don't think my siblings see me that way, but I see myself that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to just bring up that topic about like different responsibilities, the ways that Asian families raise girls versus boys differently, and how to like cope with that. Because I know that I always think, if my brother's listening, I always feel that I have more responsibilities than him.
Interesting.
And I think that will be it for forever in my head.
Yeah. Well, is it Jenny, you, and then your younger brother? That's it, or you have
No,
more
it's
siblings?
me, my sister, and then my brother. And it's like me and my sister have certain responsibilities. And my brother's just always the baby. Like he's the youngest and he's the only boy.
Yeah.
And so like we're trying to rectify it because we're all adults now.
Right.
But it's like whatever age we are, I am oldest and I am the girl. And he is the youngest and he's the baby boy. And then we have like one in the middle. So we like kind of like, it ends up being the girl's responsibility oftentimes. Not like in this like outright sexist or weird way, but it just like happens, you know?
Yeah.
Just because it's always been. So it's like, how do you deal with that oldest girl syndrome?
Yeah. So I'm the eldest daughter as well.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm the eldest daughter. The Korean family. I have a younger sister.
I'm so sorry.
So I feel this to my core. My clients actually, they talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
You know how like if they're the eldest daughter, they're the third parent.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're the third parent. I actually saw this on TikTok recently. Yeah. Where it was like the eldest child like grows up with the parents.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't get raised by the parent. They grow up with them. So all
I
of the
see.
traumas, all of that, it's like they share it with the parent.
Yeah.
It's
Like,
almost
even
like
though
you're parenting your parents
yeah,
too.
even though you're not the parent, like
Yeah.
obviously you're a child,
Yep.
Right.
right? So this is when I actually think it's really important that you work with a culturally informed therapist.
Yeah.
I
for
see.
sure.
You know,
Yeah.
because I hear from my clients all the time where they're like, oh, I try to talk to like my friends about this, but they're always like, oh, but your parents, they love you. And, you know, of course they're friends have the best of intentions, but it just makes them feel like very minimized.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're like, but you don't get it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think what's helpful is when you do have an Asian American therapist who's like, yeah, it is different. And just acknowledging that difference, it makes a world of a difference.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. Because automatically they feel seen and you're giving them an experience that they haven't had before. You know,
Yeah.
you're honoring their experience, who they are.
Yeah.
Right. When before it's like, well, you're not a son. So
Yeah,
Right.
I think this specific oldest girl child of an Asian family,
Yeah.
and then with younger brothers is such a specific trauma. And I feel
Yeah.
like, for the two of you, it sounds like it wasn't as severe, but like I remember when I was younger and the kids that I grew up with, like in the fucking 80s and 90s in Korea, it was like, nobody eats the special fruit because
Yeah.
this is for Tongun or something. Don't
Yeah.
touch the fruit.
Wait, that's my name.
Oh my God, really? That's so funny. Oh my God, that's a Freudian slip.
Oh my God.
Nobody
Yeah.
touched it's for Brian. And your mom would slap you. Like, it was so severe back then. Like,
Yeah.
and then my mom's generation in Korea, like her friend, she was the last daughter of a bunch of sons, so they were nice to
Yeah.
her. But this is back in the day, they would literally like throw their daughters away. They would starve
Yeah.
them and save the food for the son.
Right.
So like obviously in our generation,
Yeah.
we're dealing with a much lighter version of that.
Right.
But that is
Wow.
a deep trauma.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry,
It is.
Brian.
No, I mean, Mike, I don't know if you can relate. I was gonna say, as a younger brother in my family, I don't have any issues with the way I was raised.
He always had the special fruit. Which, by the way, we brought you some special food, Brian. Because
Oh
Where's
my
the plate
God.
of special
No, my
food?
older
nobody eats his fruit.
Don't
Brian's
eat
fruit.
the beef. That's
Don't
the,
eat the
that's
special
Brian.
beef.
Don't eat the beef out
It's
of
very
there.
We
real.
got you a special.
My
there's a
older sister will sometimes just be like, "If only you knew, man.
Yeah.
If only you
Yeah.
freaking knew."
We got a special vape pen for you, dude. This is just for you. We hope you're enjoying the show. Just very quickly, we want to recognize this is in partnership with Saks Off Fifth. It is Saks Off Fifth is an amazing store. It's got amazing designer brands at value. I've picked up some stuff from there. I've got some great things, and it's a really nice experience.
Yes. Same. I'm ready for summer now.
Thanks
to Saks Off.
Get ready for summer with Saks. For the third year, for the third year in a row, Saks Off Fifth is also celebrating Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Month with the Asian Mental Health Collective. It's an organization that destigmatizes mental health within the Asian community.
Saks Off Fifth, an Asian mental health collective, created the Lotus Therapy Fund 3 years ago, which provides mental health access to those who do not have financial resources or insurance to cover therapy.
The Lotus Therapy Fund has covered over 1,400 therapy sessions to date, and it's and the Asian Mental Health Collective's largest and most in-demand program.
To learn more about the Asian Mental Health Collective or to make a donation, please visit www.asianmhc.org.
Awesome. I hear you, and I think definitely I'm the oldest, and there's two sisters, and their older sister is definitely project manager Asian, and she's working through it, and I think she's done she's gotten a lot better at kind of knowing that and just like, okay, I can't try to manage all this, and then just as a boy, I will say that I think as a my thing. I don't know if any other guys feel this way. My thing is, I was treated nicer, but I was expected to sacrifice myself. I have this whole thing in my mind. I don't know why. Maybe it's bullshit. But I was like, I always have this fantasy, like I'm ready to die for my family.
Wow.
That's always because I remember my mom, like if somebody ever punched my sister, or not punched, but like, got in my sister's face, like another kid at school. My mom was like, you go in there and you like fuck up that other kid. I was like the enforcer, and it's like that was like you get the special fruit, Mike. But when it comes time, you lay your life on the line for your family, and I'm like fully ready to do it. I always have a fantasy, like a weird twisted fantasy about it.
But that's also like the eldest child thing that I think everyone, it definitely affects sons too, right? Like you're doing this parental role. That's a protection thing.
Yeah. You have to take care of the other ones.
Taking care
Right.
of. Yeah.
Right. It's my responsibility to like shield and protect my family.
Yeah.
No one can touch my family.
Yeah. And on top of that, I have to make I have to achieve the most to like
Right.
ultimately
You have
protect
to
my
be the
family.
role model.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm the role model, but I also have to make enough money that if anyone needs help, I'm there.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
always in my head. Less physical fighting because I'm weak. I'm small.
I feel
I
like
can't protect anyone.
yeah,
that way.
and I'm just like thinking about like the older generations. There's so much other stuff tied to it because I remember like my family members and stuff. They would feel weird that they would have to marry the oldest children off first, and if you got married, you couldn't get married before your older sibling. Like there's so much stuff like that. It's like complicated.
Yeah.
Lots of
Yeah.
privileges and complications. I'm so sorry I used your name, Brian. I didn't mean to.
Oh,
That was incredible.
That was
Literally did
hilarious.
not
Yeah.
know your Korean
I was
name
like,
is Jonggun.
we do have to drag Brian because he is the baby boy.
Classic youngest boy,
Yeah.
Brian.
yeah, I'm chilling.
Well, we can move on to the next like big topic, which I thought was interesting, which was people wanted to talk about therapy in general. And so a question that I liked was, when do you know that therapy is working? What are your thoughts?
Well, it's going to depend on every single person, right? There are like little nuances and idiosyncrasies. But I think just in general, when you'll know it's working when you start feeling more. And I don't want to say feeling better because some people think, oh, I started therapy and like I feel horrible, right? When it actually it's like, oh, well, you're feeling your feelings like for the
Yeah.
first time,
Processing.
right?
Yeah.
Like it's gonna feel not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So feeling more, whatever that looks like, just letting yourself feel more, learning your needs, right? Learning to take care of yourself, being more responsive rather than being more like impulsive and reactive.
Right.
Learning to slow down, being able to like identify and recognize patterns, not just in yourself but in other people too. I hear that from clients a lot where they're like they start therapy and all of a sudden like they see it everywhere.
Yeah.
And that they can't unsee it and they just
Yeah.
see it everywhere.
Yeah.
So that learning to use your voice a little bit more, implement boundaries. You're learning what you like, what you don't like. Those are some just like general broad brushstrokes. Yeah.
That's so real.
So, like, conversely, I know when I first started seeing a therapist, I was advised by friends to sort of shop around
Yeah.
and like
yeah.
see if it's a good connection. But
Yeah.
how does one know if it's not working, or like if a particular therapist isn't a good match? Like, is it purely intuitive, or do you know what I mean?
I would say that like give it like a few sessions.
Yeah.
But even when I'm talking to prospective clients and I'm doing consultations with them, I tell them like, I hope you're talking to other therapists as well. And sometimes they'll ask me like, how will I know? And I was like, well, can you imagine telling them like all of your junk? Do you think you can talk to this person about
Yeah.
all of that?
Yeah.
And if you don't think you can, right, or you can get there, probably not the person for you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna just say that I'm really glad that what you said about how you said if you feel better, but that's not necessarily you feeling better. It might feel yuckier because
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
processing, and that's not a sign to stop. It's a sign that you're working through something. I'm glad that you said that.
Yeah.
100%. Before I started therapy,
Yeah.
I was like, I would say I was in a band of emotions, like this small in the middle.
Yeah.
And I would never feel above or below it. Does that make sense? Like my
Yeah.
little graph was like very small.
Oh, that's right,
And I
yeah.
started therapy because I felt that I wasn't feeling happy, but I wasn't like depressed. I was just like, but I
Yeah.
don't feel good all the time. Like, I don't really feel fulfilled, but everything's fine.
Yeah.
Like everything
Yeah.
structurally looks good. I have friends. I'm like feeling pretty good. And then I started going to therapy, and then I was like, oh shoot, it was because I was repressing myself to feel only
Wow.
this much feeling. The good
Yeah.
was a small amount of good, but the bad was a small amount of bad.
Yeah.
And I started going to therapy, and then I was like, dang, I feel really bad right now. But at least I felt it. Like I never
Yeah.
even felt, I would start crying. My body would start crying before therapy, and I wouldn't know why.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like my body
Interesting.
was reacting before my brain did, because I was like, there's functionally nothing wrong. My life is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But then I'd be like, but why am I breaking down once every 2 months? Just like break down crying.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have told you I was sad. I was just like, my body's just tired, which is wild.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it was like after therapy, I was like, oh, I don't have to break down to know that I'm not not happy or if I'm feeling sad or whatever the feeling is.
You're like in touch
Yeah.
with it more.
Yeah.
Where, like before you didn't know what it was.
I had no
about
idea
it.
what was
Yeah.
going on.
Right,
fascinating.
right.
Yeah, my body was just doing its own thing, and I was like, "That's crazy," and I would just like live my life with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
YOLO.
Yeah, I was like, "There, my body goes again." Well, anyways, like, let me write this email. Like, I really was living like that.
But I think, Jenny, your explanation of how that felt like therapy working for you is like great for that question, because if
Yeah.
this person, I'm guessing they haven't been to therapy, so they don't understand what that's gonna look like.
Yeah,
Because I feel like my journey with like how much therapy has helped me was like similar, where we would be working on something. I'd be like, what the fuck are we talking about this?
Yeah.
Like, who cares?
Yeah.
I'm crying all the time. And then like months later, like this whole big part of my personality like was resolved, like what you're talking about, like this like spontaneous crying, and then you realize you were like getting, and it's so during the process I didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of like when you go get a massage and
Yeah.
with a good masseuse, and
Yeah.
you're like, my neck hurts, and they start massaging like your arm or something.
Yeah.
You're like, what the fuck are you doing? That's not my
Yeah.
neck.
Yeah.
And then your neck is loose because they were getting to
Right.
whatever the core of the problem was.
yeah.
Right.
And then you can move your
Right.
arm better or your neck better. You know, it's like it doesn't. It's not very obvious when you're doing it.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember when my therapist would ask a bunch of questions about my parents when I was talking about something else, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, I was like, I'm talking about something totally different. And then I was like, oh.
At the end, they'll
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
say one sentence, and you're like, damn it,
Yeah,
got
yeah.
me again.
Yeah, exactly.
You're right.
Yeah. Sometimes my clients will be like, why are we talking about this, Kathryn? I don't understand.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're the common denominator. It will make sense. I'm like, just trust it. Let's keep talking about it.
Mike, have you been to therapy?
I've only been to what's it called? Cognitive behavioral
Soul
Okay.
cycle.
Soul cycle.
What's it called? Soul cycle.
Yeah, I have been to university. How about that?
Got it.
That was my therapy.
I only asked
Okay.
because throughout, for the listeners who aren't watching the video, Mike's
I'm
just like
constantly mind It's just like so crazy, bro. No, I haven't been to like this kind of therapy.
Yeah,
I've been
I see.
to cognitive behavioral therapy, which I loved.
Okay.
yeah.
And I thought was very useful in its own way. It was very, I don't know how to say it, practical, I guess you could
Yes.
say. It was very
Yeah.
like, let's stop. Because at the time, I was going through, quite frankly, a crisis. I was going through like a crisis
Yeah.
where it was like really, really, really insane. And it was, and so it stopped it. And then I've been thinking about like, maybe I got to go do this other thing because the feeling thing, especially, I would say for the last couple years, especially the pandemic, there was there was a point where I didn't feel shit.
Ooh.
I would play music as
Yeah.
loud as possible, and I would just be like, nothing's happening, you know.
Yeah.
And so it was so weird. It was so like I just didn't.
Yeah.
I just was like nothing made me feel better. And so I did it as hard as possible,
Yeah.
and that just ruined me physically. And then like, you know, so it's just like, again,
Yeah.
like that really resonates, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so to have something where you're like, you can feel something again,
Yeah.
you know, that's, I
Yeah.
think something that, that I hadn't thought about before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can
Oh,
I
sorry,
just say
go ahead.
that, like the two of you, like, do you think that I'm just guessing because I think for Asian people, a lot of our culture is about minimizing our emotions and putting the other people's emotions above our own.
Yeah.
So do you see a lot of that, in your clients, like the suppressing, or for me, it's shown up like as an adult. Sometimes I can't even name them, or I don't even know I'm feeling them because I'm so out of touch with them. Like, do you see
Yeah.
that a lot in your clients?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. So like I always check in with my clients like, how's your week? Like, how are you? How are
You're
you?
like, it's great.
And then
It was amazing.
I crushed it at work.
I'm fine, and how are you?
Thumbs up, react.
Yeah.
Like
good.
immediately they're
Yeah.
asking me, how are you? Right?
Oh yeah.
How was your weekend? What did you do? Did you do anything, Kathryn? I'm just like,
Oh.
oh yeah, I was fine. And I'm like, how are you? Like, how are you?
That's interesting.
Right.
You know, and then they'll
right.
be, and then they'll go to like the very tactical, like, oh, I did this, I did that, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, how are you doing? Like, how are you feeling?
Yeah, that's
This is
so
literally my
interesting.
first year of therapy. I would always come in and be like, no, but what did you do? And she's like, we're not talking about that.
Yeah.
And then I would say tactically, concretely, every activity I did.
Uh-huh.
And then she'll go, okay, but how did you feel about those things?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, it's therapy. And I'm like, what a waste. Like, this
Time
is
to
not
do
how-
a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joke, you know?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was so uncomfortable. I now do it. Like, I get it
Yeah.
now. But it was like, at the time, I couldn't even understand the concept of
Yeah.
only me talking for an hour and
That
about me,
feels
my
so rude.
feelings. Like, no.
Yeah.
I talk about what I did. You know, I sent 400 emails or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But not about how stressful that was
Exactly,
or how
exactly.
overwhelmed you felt.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is literally the core of it all.
It's so funny that your clients are coming in and being like, no, let's talk about you. How was your weekend?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And
It's just a
I'm
conversation. Yeah.
like, it's fine. How are you?
yeah.
And I always have to tell them because sometimes they'll start talking about even like their partner's really stressed out or their
Right.
friends
Yep,
and
yep.
oh my gosh, I can see that this is so toxic for them. And I, sometimes I do have to tell them like, hey, like, you're my client.
Yeah.
I want to know how this is impacting you.
Yeah.
feels bad to center yourself.
I know, it feels so
you
bad.
feel selfish and stuff.
Oh, I feel terrible doing it. Like talking. It's weird because I love talking, and I have a huge ego, but I hate talking about myself.
Well, I,
Yeah.
think
I always
that-
feel I'm
yeah.
boring people.
Yeah, me too. I think that's interesting, and I always think about this when I see somebody acting like that, like not talking about themselves. Because my belief is that everybody has an ego, and we all have the instinct to want to talk about ourselves, and you know, like show whatever those feelings are showing off. And then if you don't allow that in yourself, it seems to get like it gets weird. You know, like I feel like people get weird.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, there's a reason why I was so drawn to white people. I think I talked about it in the podcast. I was so drawn to white people as friends because I didn't have to ever talk about myself. Because everyone would talk about themselves. Like, I loved, like, alpha personalities who it's, like, all about their lives. Because then I was like, that's right where I fit. Like, I don't have to talk about myself. I get to comment on their lives. They see me as just, like, a fun friend.
Yeah.
And I did that for so long until therapy, where I was like, wow, they're not listening to me actually. Like, I don't think they know me. And I was like, I don't know if I know me. And so then as I started shifting to talk about myself more and prioritize my needs and wants,
Yeah.
that's when my friend breakups would happen because they were like,
Yes.
wow, you're so self-centered all of a sudden.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, like to me or to them, our dynamic was that I was here to cater to their needs,
Yeah.
but they're unable to cater to mine.
Right. Right.
And that only happened after like a year of therapy.
Yeah. And that's by the way is a byproduct of therapy. It's like you're realizing and like, oh, I've outgrown these friendships, these
Right.
spaces, and you know, they really don't know me.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, on that topic, I wanted to ask a question that I think is fascinating. Someone went to a conference, an Asian American conference, and they brought up the question that therapy is a European construct.
Yeah.
So how can we as Asian Americans practice mindfulness and peace within something that's a Western construct? I thought that was so fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is something that I always sit with because I fully recognize like there's so much racism embedded in the history and field of psychology, like mental health. And I'm always kind of like, how do I decolonize my own practice of therapy?
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of that is really just, well, one, you have to acknowledge it, period. Right? They always say like, oh, awareness is the first step. It is true though, right? So you just need to acknowledge it. And then two, do a lot of research. Like this is when education is key, right? And I think especially now, like mindfulness, meditation, yoga, these are all practices that people are finding a lot of like healing in, right? And so interesting because it's not just me as a therapist, but as an individual too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like last week I went to get acupuncture, right?
Right.
And this is my first time. So I Google NYC acupuncturist, right? And there was an explosion of results. I see all these wellness clinics, right, that not only offer acupuncture, but like cupping and sound bath healing. And I'm like, whoa, this is so weird. Because when I think about cupping, I think about like when I went to the Korean sauna with my mom and I'd see all these like Korean ajumas, like middle-aged women getting cupping, and they're like, you know, half naked in the bathhouse, right? And then I see it, and it's like been being presented now in this very like trendy kind of way. And I'm like, oh, this is so interesting as like an individual and someone that's technically in like the wellness space. And it is a very weird tension, and I had to sit with it a little bit where I was like, this is kind of weird. This is weird.
It is weird when you look up acupuncture and the top like 200 results are just white guys. Like Todd.
And so
it's like a
again,
a
even
headshot
in like
of him in scrubs.
So even me personally, I was like, what do I remember I looked to my partner, I was like, where do I go? Like, what do I do? I'm like, there's so many of them. And I'm like, this is kind of weird. And so for me, I all of a sudden started doing so much like research on acupuncture. And I was like, okay, like, how can I make a decision that feels right for me? So I started doing all this research, and eventually I was like, okay, I landed on working with this like Japanese woman who also was like the owner of this clinic. And that felt right to me. It was also like reasonably priced and all of that. And that felt right to me, And again, I think about my own practice and, you know, me being a therapist, how I work to decolonize, where I'm like, okay, let me not be so quick to pathologize. Let me try to make it more collaborative. Let me be as flexible as possible. Again, let me do research before I jump into a modality and I learn about it. And when I do learn about it, I think about how I can adapt this to my work. You know?
I was going to say, I think the answer to that question is you know, being very well aware of this is like it's something from a Western culture, and it might not fit in with your cultural background. But the answer is to find a therapist that's like Kathryn, right? Like this, like somebody like you that's putting in the work, making this field that doesn't really fit into the unique culture of somebody that is, you know, from an Asian ethnic background living in a Western country. And it's like, who better than Kathryn to do that? And I also think it's funny that you bring up the acupuncture thing, because nobody is ever talking shit about those Todd guys doing acupuncture. like they're like, do you really get it? If you're not, like, you know, like people let them do that. So Asian people can work in these Western whatever fields like psychology, and you're so much more better. What's the word? Like better equipped to help the kind of clients that you do see and the people that are asking these questions, I think.
So it's not just therapists, but like you know, there are a lot of meditation healers out there, or mindfulness coaches, yoga instructors.
And you're taking that, which is like what they said, like a Western whatever concept, and you're changing it to fit this, you know, our group of people that you were trying to help with your clients. So I think,
Well, related, because that kind of just led in, how do you deal with the whiplash around Asian culture being so prevalent in white spaces now? Like the fact that acupuncture is cool, you know, eating like fermented beans is pretty chill now. Like, like how can people who were maybe like bullied for this stuff younger, how do you deal with the whiplash of now being cool all of a sudden?
I feel like there's like I don't know, like there's a lot of resentment I have where it's like, y'all didn't fuck with Vietnam before, and now you're like I always have very mixed feelings about how popular pho and Vietnamese food is becoming. Because I'm just like, y'all didn't like that before, and now you're cool. Now we're best friends, or some shit. You guys always ask me where the best pho is. It's up your ass. How about that? You know, like that's. I'm sorry, I'm getting very angry.
It's okay.
You know, it's like it's just it. And then I also sense, even in the sort of last couple of years, it's like everybody was all stop Asian hate, and now it's like, okay, cool. Well, you guys had your Marvel movie and Beef came out, so we're good, right? We're good. And I'm waiting for the shoe to drop always. So I don't know if that even has to do with therapy, but that's what I'm
You could do the Dave Chang approach and start selling $70 gochujang to the whites.
I'll do it.
Oh yeah, just capitalize on it.
Yeah, get the bag. Get the bag, baby.
No, but that resentment
jokes.
is really. I would like to hear actually, like, how do you? Because that resentment that Mike just brought up, I feel like a lot of Asian people have that, you know, and I think it's from the fact that we did get made fun of, and now, you know, you think it's cool, and a bunch of white people are making money off of it. How do we deal with those emotions?
Yeah, well, I always like just first step is to acknowledge it, right? And then whenever anyone's expressing any sort of anger or resentment, what I hear and see is just a lot of pain, right? So much pain. Like, how hard must have been for you as a child to be bullied for who you were.
Yeah,
that sucks. That's horrible, right? That's racism right there, right? And I think a part of it is righteous.
Yeah.
Like, you're mad for that.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Yeah.
Like, you're mad for that child version of you.
Yeah.
Right? That was bullied for what?
Right.
Yeah.
Right? And I think so much of it is actually righteous. So when I'm working with my clients, I'm like, how can we metabolize this anger and then channel it into something that feels more productive, right? And it not productive in the sense of like, oh, now I need to like create a nonprofit organization type of productive, but productive in a way of like, how can you come to like just terms with it and be able to like accept it?
Yeah, you just you leave a really bad Yelp review of the white-owned pho restaurant. You're like, this tastes like shit.
Or you
The
make
chef
a
is white.
scathing TikTok.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Commenting
I'm just
on
kidding.
culture.
I know that's
Just
fine.
kidding.
Catherine's like, no,
kidding.
that's not. Just kidding. Revenge.
Just kidding.
Just kidding.
I do think that's one thing that, just to kind of close this out a little bit, is, you know, as comedians, I feel I'm drawn to this because it is, this is me. Instead of me like stabbing somebody, I'm gonna make a joke. You know,
Right,
you know?
right.
And I was wondering
There's
if
an
you ever
outlet.
had any thoughts about that, because as all of us, we're all comedians. We all desperately need therapy, and we, you know, chose this path, or it chose us, or whatever you want to say. But you know, do you? I don't know if there's a question, but like, if you had any thoughts about that and like how we turn the trauma into jokes, you know?
I mean, we all need an outlet, right? We all do, whether that's like making jokes, right? But you know, humor is also a coping mechanism, right? Being very mindful
100%.
of that. Humor is
We're
a
all
coping
coping right
mechanism,
now.
right? Right, but you know, people turn to other things like gardening, or they
Damn. That would be
dance,
so much
right?
healthier.
So much healthier than whatever we're doing.
Catherine's like trying to, like, you know, humor. You could garden.
Yeah.
Instead of making
You
these
don't need to
weird
be
jokes.
sitting in this booth with a microphone on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. Go outside.
Yeah, but I do think there is, the more that we talk about it, the more that we all feel like empowered,
Yeah.
right?
Totally.
Because
Yeah.
it's not helpful to just not talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? We should talk about it. We have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right? And there's that quote by Bell Hooks where she says like, healing is an act of communion. Right? And I do think like sharing our stories, like, that is so healing. And when we begin to recognize like, oh, this isn't just my story, but this is our story, right? We just feel just like such a stronger sense of like community, right? And that's where true healing happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
And I'm gonna say it's not the white people's fault that they just discovered acupuncture. They don't know. They don't know that we were made fun of for our stinky lunches, and now they're putting it on their hot dogs. You know, like, and I mean, I feel the resentment too. I'm like, fuck you, man. Like, why the fuck are you opening a fucking pho restaurant?
Yeah.
But then I'm like, he doesn't fucking know. You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, have you heard of this? It's called kimchi, and you're just like, shut the. No, yeah, I have. Thank you.
Yeah.
It looks great. Like, it's not there. Yeah.
Yeah.
People don't know.
Yeah.
We're carrying that with us.
Should we end on a positive note? This one? Okay, so we have a question. Okay, so maybe Asian people struggle with accepting compliments. So how do we just get better with kind of accepting compliments, words of affirmation? How do we like get more confident there? I think there's like, for me, for sure, I feel like self-deprecation, number one thing I do. Then like I also like don't know. I love words of affirmation, but I'm like not great at handling it. Like I feel icky a little bit, but I love it. So yeah, any tips on how we can get better at accepting compliments?
Yeah. So what I see a lot is people try to like undermine and like water the compliment. They're like, oh, it's not a big deal. No worries. Like, right?
Yeah.
They water it down. And I'm like, it starts by just being like, thank you. I did work really hard. Thank you.
Wow, so that's what we're supposed to do? No,
Unrelatable.
I don't think so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, what? Yeah. I mean, I did a show. I did a Asian Comedy Festival yesterday, and I was like, I closed out the show, and afterwards I was like, I felt I did good, but like, I immediately grabbed that feeling and drowned it. I was like, no, I did not do good. And everybody kept on coming around me going, hey, Mike, good job for giving me that. And I was like, these guys are all snakes. These people are all lying. I'm terrible at this. You know? But it's like, I know that I'm doing it, and I'm like, I do work really hard. I'm sacrificing a lot to be here. You know, it's like, I've been doing it for fucking ever, you know? And it's like,
yeah, remind yourself of all that.
Yeah.
Just let yourself receive it. And again, it can just be as simple as saying thank you. Thank you.
I've been practicing that actually, because that's like
really?
something that, and it's so hard because I'm always like, thank you.
It's so hard.
And I'm like stopping myself from being like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
And then I just like slowly walk away.
100. Yeah. I'll be like, thank you. It's stupid anyways. It's all stupid. It's just comedy. It's stupid.
No, thank you, period.
Yeah, no.
Period.
The
And then-
second part.
Yeah.
Just say it soft. Just go, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You mean everything to me. I want to die. I'm a loser.
Wait, can I say something about the compliments thing that I finally made me understand why it's so bad? It's like I don't know when I heard this, but it's like, when you give somebody a gift and you like take a long time to like pick it, and it's special to you and you love this person, and you give them a gift, and like imagine if they were like, and smashed it up and threw it on the ground. That's how it feels to people giving you a compliment. And then you're like, no, I'm stupid. It's like you want, like this person's trying to be kind to you and give you something. And if you don't receive it, it's like you're shitting on this thing that they're giving you.
It's so real.
And that's like when I understood that that was harmful for me to do that.
Right.
So just say thank you. Like, thank you.
Right.
Rip it in your soul and then move on. Yeah.
It's actually the most loving thing you can do for like you and like the person giving the compliment. It's just to receive it. Because you would want, if you're giving a compliment, you would want the person to just receive it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just so wild that I need external validation, but I hate being complimented too much. That's the part that I'm like, what?
Have you tried gardening?
Yeah.
Like, for that, I would be like, do you trust yourself?
Yeah.
Stop it! Stop it!
Do you not believe in yourself?
Oh,
do you
no,
not
I
trust
don't.
yourself?
Oh my god.
Do you really feel that you're worthy?
Oh.
Oh, what do you know?
Well, that's all. That is our time. That is our time. I want to say thank you to our guests for coming on. Brian, Youngmi, you guys are always amazing, and you're always welcome back on the show anytime you want.
Thank you.
Yeah, and
Yeah, compliment.
no, and then I love you guys. And then Kathryn, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And if any listeners want to reach out to you for anything, services or what have you, where can they find you?
You can find me at kathrynleetherapy.com. You can also find me on Instagram at chatwithkat.
Okay, great. You can find us on the podcast at Asian Not Asian Pod, and you find me on Instagram at Nice Pants Bro.
I'm at Jenny Arimoto.
I'm at YM Mayor.
I'm at It's Brian Park.
And this has been a really nice episode. I didn't do this up top, but we have some shows coming up. If you want to come check out our shows, we have a live podcast dating show that's going to be June 1st. And then, of course, we have a Hack City that's going to be the second Friday of every month. And that's always just Google Hack City Comedy, and you can always check that out if you want to see me cope That's what I do. It's a coping show. It's not a comedy show. But again, thank you to all of our guests. And I don't even know what to say, man.
Is it? We're horny still.
Yeah.
Oh, we're still horny.
Bring it
Ha!
back to the
It came
horny.
back.
Still
Nice callback.
horny.
Nice callback.
So horny.
I didn't say it this time. So, but thank you so much, and everybody take care of yourselves. Be kind to yourselves.
Yes.
Yes.
Be kind.
That's a good one.
No, I won't, but you do. You do it for yourself.
Oh, it's
But not
stupid
me.
anyways.
I'm stupid.
It's fucking dumb
Thank you.
anyways.
Bye, everybody.